My name is Chris White and I'm the founder of Aspiring Solicitors. I wouldn't define commercial awareness because I don't think commercial awareness is definable. Commercial awareness is something which is abstract and that you develop over a period of time and that can't be fitted into certain boxes or packages. There are countless examples of commercial issues in the daily press. There are also issues that you might not consider to be commercial issues or that might have commercial impacts, such as the Ukraine-Russia crisis or the Ebola outbreak. There are obviously commercial impacts on that because whenever there's a conflict or whenever there's a war, there are impacts on confidence in the markets. There's also direct consequences in terms of the countries which are involved, but also the outcome and the related factors for other countries. So if you take Ukraine-Russia crisis, for example, there have been sanctions that have been placed on Russia as a result of the crisis. These issues not only have an impact on Russia and Ukraine, but they also have an impact on the retail industry in the UK. If you look at the West End, the sales and the profitability of high-end shops that have previously benefited from a lot of Russian spending, a lot of Russian money coming in and buying expensive handbags, watches, clothes, jewellery, that's gone down, that's decreased. So there's an immediate impact on retail. Less so than the sanctions that have been in place. That has an impact not only on the banks that law firms work with, but also on a wider implication in terms of on the ground, in terms of the effect that it might have on offices that are located in that jurisdiction. If you take Ebola, for example, the obvious implications of the Ebola outbreak are the fact that tourism has reduced, or the number of flights going into and out of Africa have reduced as a result of the fear associated with the illness and the disease. But the wider implications on that are, what has it done for pharmaceutical companies who are now trying to get a vaccine or are now trying to defend against the disease? And what impact has that had on their profitability? How have law firms then been able to deal with the outbreaks in the continents and the related areas? And what contingency plans are in place? You've seen that Heathrow and large US airports are screening people that are flying into their airports. What impact has that got? So many different issues related to commercial issues that people don't recognise are commercial actually exist. So a common question that was used in a number of commercial interviews not so long ago was, how will the potential devolution of Scotland impact our law firm? Now, many people associate politics, don't associate politics with law. Is very closely linked, because politics will have an impact on the companies and the economy, which will consequently have an impact on the law firms. So a way in which you could go about answering a question on devolution in terms of Scottish devolution from England would be, consider the impacts, consider the organisations in Scotland that would be affected. So there's a lot of banks that are based in Scotland, there are a lot of, there's oil obviously. How would that affect a firm? So you have to have a couple of trails of thought. You have to have a tertiary, secondary and primary thought process in terms of what is the immediate most obvious effect. Well, the most immediate obvious effect is currency. How will people then deal with the separation of power? But when you're looking at answering a question like that in an interview, it's all about structure, all about logic. They want to see that you're going through the type of thought processes that you would go through if you're advising a client, which is to be clear, to be structured, and to be logical. So you'd want to introduce a summary sentence in terms of answering the immediate question. Again, very important, answering the question you're asked. Then you'd look to build a response to that. And you wouldn't want to be flooding your brain dumping onto the interviewer. But what you do want to do is consider the language you're using and consider the points you're about to make. So if it was, for example, a company like Norton Rose Fulbright, you would want to consider the headlight areas that that company or that law firm operates in. So you might want to consider or mention, to demonstrate your knowledge of the firm, that I understand that Norton Rose Fulbright, one of its key headlights is financial services. Therefore, the fact that there are a number of banks that have relations with Norton Rose Fulbright in Scotland would obviously impact the firm. Very simplistic, very straightforward, again logical, clear. You then explain how. So it may be that the various agreements that a firm has, or a company has, or a bank has, with its other counterparties, with other people in the financial services world, may require that those agreements are novated or changed. You would then explain that that might generate extra income for the firm, but then you might go one step further and say there might be some additional opportunities for business in terms of Norton Rose Fulbright's additional working areas or headlights, such as energy. You know, if you've got certain environmental issues or large energy providers that are looking to relocate or move from Scotland for whatever reasons, you've got the pensions issue. So then going one step further again and demonstrating your knowledge of the firm, your knowledge of the implications of the issue, i.e. devolution, and what that might actually mean. No need to overcomplicate it. The best thing, the best answers that you can provide are those that are clear, structured and logical, and be confident in what you're saying. Again, another thing that I would recommend is, if you're referencing a commercial point in an interview, you have to understand it, you have to be ready to be challenged on it, and withstand those questions. Because if you reference something, you need to be able to talk about it, offer the threats and opportunities, the positives and negatives, the advantages and disadvantages, and understand what you're talking about. Because if you don't understand it, you'll be found out. My top tip for staying commercially aware isn't to force yourself to read the FT, and it isn't to force yourself to read The Economist. But my top tip is to read things that interest you. Because if you're not interested by something, it's not going to sink in. And if you read things that are interest to you, you will then look to go into an area of law or practice an area of law in which you're going to be happy doing. And that's really, really important. If you're not happy in something, you're not going to stay in it very long. And enjoying things, looking to follow something that you enjoy, it may be that you're interested in the Apple or Beats by Dre and that area of media and technology, or it might be that you're really excited about mergers and acquisitions, actually understing how a merger takes place. But you're not going to be interested in everything that you read in the FT or the broadsheets or the business section of Sky News. Read things that interest you and develop that understanding. Write a glossary of key phrases and acronyms in a little handbook that you're familiar with, so that you then start using that type of language in interviews, in your applications. Read about things you're interested in.